Welcome to the Play Inspire Tonight podcast. I'm your host, Ben Rycroft. If you're not already, subscribe to us on YouTube, Ontario Soccer. Click that notification bell. That way, whenever a new interview comes out or anything on this channel, you're going to be notified. This interview series is about lifting the curtain on what goes on at Ontario Soccer. Too often, people don't understand who we are and the role that the provincial body plays in this province. These are interviews with staff. They're there to discuss what's going on and off the field. These are interviews with people in the membership who continue to push our game forward and unite those around that passion. We're also going to speak to those who are occasionally not from soccer, but are here to inspire us. And today's chat falls under the Unite portion of this podcast. And our guests today are the entire match official department. Nicky, Louise, Kyla, thank you very much for joining us today, guys. And I wanted to start by doing the traditional match official welcome. Go, boo, boo. No, sorry, that's not how people greet you guys. Yeah. Thank you again for joining us here today. We really want to sort of get to the personality of this program. You guys are excellent at what you do. And for me, Nicky, why don't we start here? As the manager of this department, why don't you tell us why you came to soccer originally, where you came from, and sort of what's driving you now as the leader of this department?
I came in 2010. I was working downtown Toronto and the drive was getting to me. I was working for another PSO. Yeah. And soccer, since I was 3 years old, I've been playing soccer. I played competitive till I was 25. So when this job came up, I originally applied for a coordinator position, and apparently I was overqualified. So I applied for the manager position, and I've been here 9 years. I had a couple of people that said I wouldn't last 6 months, so they owe me dinner. Nice. What drives me every day? It's the people I work with. It's the changes we can make. I'm surrounded by an amazing staff, and our match officials development committee is second to none, I'd say, in this country. So every day's a fun coming in. Yeah,
for me, it's like when I look at your department, you have 3 people obviously, but then you have such a large group working with you beyond that as well. That's sort of unique to your position and your role here, is it not?
It is, and we're lucky. We've got 7 minds on that committee that, I tell you, we any day you have one of those days, you pick up the phone, you can phone any one of them, and they've each got the same goal in mind, which is to improve our programming, right? Because we're important to the game as well. So
not as well. You were full stop.
Yeah,
you are
we're important to the game. Yeah, we're one of those pillars. They inspire me every day, and I think by building the relationships with people in the community, it just makes our jobs easier, and you can see the end results a lot quicker.
Kyla and Louise, you're both sort of relatively new to Ontario Soccer. Kyla, you've been working with Nicky on the match official crew on a number of things, but in the last year, LTOD certainly has been the biggest of all of those. What's the feedback that you've been hearing in the community about LTOD today?
That's a really great question. I think that the feedback for us isn't so much gathered within the vocal or the verbal dialogue, but so much as how we see all the communities and the clubs and the districts react and how they implement the programming that we're providing with the long-term officials development program, and how to see them progress. I think that speaks volumes. Granted, we talk to a lot of people within the community, and I think that any kind of positive comments that we receive within the match official development committee or department is monumental in and of itself.
I agree.
But to see the kind of reaction that we're getting with those communities and those districts and clubs implementing those programs, to see how their results speaks more than just getting verbal.
I agree 100%. So for me, like looking at it from the outside in, you guys are one of those departments who can never do any right in some respects, because you're just, every week, someone on the match official side, not your department necessarily, like a match official messes up a call, and of course that reflects on everybody here. But what's been staggering and startling to me, not startling so much, but it's surprising, is how positively LTOD has been sort of promoted and reviewed within the community. It's one of the things I see consistently people talking about online, what it's done for them and what it can do for them. And so that must make you guys feel really good that you're onto something, but also sort of just give us our sense of where you see LTOD going in the next couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of that is attributed, I feel as though, to the outreach that we've done over the past couple of years, right. And reaching out to the clubs and sitting down with them and communicating with them. Ben, honestly, I can tell you that when we go into some of those meetings, you can literally cut the tension in the room. And so at the end of that hour presentation, to see those community members that are affiliated with the clubs and districts, it's interesting to see their perception of the program completely change, because they realize that we're not coming in there with an iron fist and say this is what you have to do, but so much as how can we help you. We realize that the things that are working in Windsor aren't necessarily going to be working in Ottawa.
Right.
And I think that the turning point for us was realizing that it wasn't a one-size-shoe-fits-all, but so much as if recognizing that if we can at least get everybody to wear the same type of shoe, that that's the one step in the right direction.
You're right. Our biggest aha moment, I think, was, if I can say it, EMSA.
Yeah.
We went into EMSA last year, and we had our idea. LTOD is a vision, and we've built this vision, and we knew where we wanted to go. And one of the leaders in EMSA said, you need to look at this slightly differently. It's not going to work in Kincardine if it works in London. Right. And we came out of that meeting and said, okay, we need to readjust everything. And it worked by listening, which is the biggest thing. Listen, learn more.
That's why I was so impressed in the early stages, was the amount of time that you were spending sort of with outreach.
Yes.
You weren't just sitting in your sort of glass castle saying, this is the way it's going to be. You sat and you went to these meetings, and I could tell because I was following you on Twitter all the time. I know I'm in Oshawa, and I'm in Windsor, and I'm all around the province. And Luis, I want you to jump in here as well, because for those who don't understand it, why is LTOD, in your own words, so important to the province of Ontario?
I think it's really important because, well, I'll start off with this. I attended one of the LTOD meetings with Nicky and Tony, and I saw there was a good amount of people who showed up to the meeting, and not only did it help open eyes to the different things we were trying to complete and kind of get to, but it also gave them the opportunity to share their concerns and their worries, and that also brought up different new ideas that we could bring into the LTOD. So if we had to switch, maybe customize one aspect for that region because of the needs that they want, we could customize LTOD to what we need for them. And then I believe those meetings, those kind of town hall meetings in a way, were really, really great because it not only shared how we feel about LTOD to the membership there, but also give them the opportunity to speak to us, so then we could customize it the way we need to.
And that's good learning for the rest of the rest of our programming as well, because one size fits all does not work in Ontario, and I think that's what we've been learning.
Yeah, it is, and the interesting part is, and we're lucky to have leadership right now at Ontario Soccer that's really supporting the officials' development initiative for the last 2 or 3 years. And we finally got to go to the clubs this year. So we've done really 18 to 20,000 kilometers between January and May, 2 years in a row. Right? It's a little bit crazy. We see more, the LTOD group sees more of each other than we do our families. Right. And the thing, this year we got to the clubs, and the clubs, we walked into one club and they said, the only time I see you is if there's a rule being enforced or if you being Ontario Soccer. And it was a very tense environment. We were being hugged when we walked out of the room because finally somebody's listening. And I don't mean that we don't listen as an organization, but this department's finally listening. When people feel that they've got a voice, they're going to be more involved, they're going to be more engaged, right? And they're going to take a little bit more ownership. So that's important to us. So
just again, I want to hear sort of your perspective on what you think LTOD is going to be, not just what it is right now, but what it's going to be in 2 years, what it's going to be in 5 years, what it's going to be in 10 years. What are we going to see in this province that LTOD has impacted? And I want everybody to jump in on this.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I believe Kyla kind of gave the word when we first talked about LTOD. It's going to be game changing. Not only because there's nothing like this basically in North America, if I'm correct, but
there's nothing in other sports at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Soccer.
But the impact that it'll have on match officials everywhere, it's amazing, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and with the people around us and the people helping us as well, it'll just, like Kyla said to me before, it's going to be game changing. On
the ground, what do you see it being, Kyla?
On the ground, I think, especially from the grassroots level going up, I think it's going to be a real, like Luis said, game changer in that it won't just affect the match official and their performance on the field, but it'll subsequently affect the players and how they develop and how they play on the field. It should also affect the coaching staff and the parents as well, and their behavior and how they conduct themselves on the fields, so that they recognize that we're making strides to improve the way that we officiate and the way that we implement regulations of the game. That will be the biggest change, and I think that will carry through forwards for years and years, because we're creating and we're establishing a set of standards right? That I don't think anybody else is really creating in the way that we're doing. So that'll be, I think, the biggest impact for LTOD from grassroots up.
And I think too, from the leadership point of view at the club, district and provincial level, if we can educate the technical directors, the club boards, the club presidents, that match officiating is an integral part of their club or district programming, and that there's a value to what we bring to the table. And when they're budgeting for field time, give the referees or the match officials half a field for a couple of hours a week, because that's the only time we'll get to practice, right? We only get to practice during games. Mm-hmm. So the expectation of perfection from the parents and the coaches, it's hard for us to deliver when there's not the development opportunities off the field of play. So if we can get to the clubs and the TDs and the presidents and get the whole community embracing this. We presented to the Ministry of Ontario in March for their Game On program. Mm-hmm. And we were the only sport asked to present at the provincial level, and based on that, Game On is going to include an officiating development component. So you've got to be proud of that. We've got to be 100%. Proud as Ontario Soccer.
And I think there's that disconnect, and you're sort of touching on it now, is that people want match officiating to be perfect, but they don't ever think about, okay, to be perfect, as an athlete, you have to train. Yeah. As a coach, you have to get informed. Yeah. They don't think about it and they're like, oh, a match official needs to get better at what they do. So how do you sort of combat that as a sort of a disconnect? And I'm joking, but like, you have to be a bit of a masochist to want to be a match official. You take a lot of abuse, but how do you get past that as a disconnect for the community?
Well, we often ask, does officiating make you resilient, or are you resilient so you can become an official? Are you resilient going in? So when we've got these 12, 13, 14-year-olds starting out in the small-sided match game environment, the 7v7, they're often there on their own, right? They take the course, we give them literally survival skills, and out you go. With the new mentoring program that Kyla's been working on and putting together, that's going to start to support those officials at age 12, age 13, age 14. Then we bring them into the separation on the two pathways. We need to educate the parents and coaches that 12-year-old, it's possibly their first game. They're not going to make every call correctly. We don't get to practice. Your child started playing at soccer at 6, ours aren't coming in until 12 or 13. So we've got to get these pathways together, right? Moving up through the pyramid. So it's a struggle. It's the Monday morning phone calls we often get the Monday morning phone calls, and right. But you've got to take one positive out of every day. So
just describe what Monday morning phone call is. Or what does it look like on a Monday?
It's typically your ref cost us the game. Okay. That's typically, it's not quite as polite as that, but that's typically what we get on Monday mornings. But as Nancy Spotton has said to us, that out of every negative day, you have to take one positive. And with LTOD, there's always a positive. We're lucky every day we get something come through on email or phone calls.
And that leads right into what I wanted to talk about. There are a lot of things sort of unknown about what Ontario Soccer does for our match officials and what they provide for match official development. So what are some of the biggest programs that you feel are sort of missed or not known by the general public about what you guys do year round?
People think we collect registration money and assign match officials. We actually have 21, possibly now 30 program areas that we manage. From assessment to instruction to evaluation to fitness to registration upgrading. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I believe that we are the biggest department in the organization in the ways of programming. Right. So that's why the Match Officials Development Committee is so important as well. Mm-hmm. So people on the outside looking in often don't see, if they're not involved in that program stream, they don't see all the components that go into it. So that would be one of the biggest things, I think.
Is there anyone in particular you feel like is like sort of your bedrock for something you feel is really important that maybe people don't know about, the general public wouldn't know about?
I think Nikki hit the nail on the head when she reiterated the fact that we cover so many different program areas in one department. Mm-hmm. I think that's, and I don't think one is more important than the other, because at the end of the day, there's so many different moving parts and they all connect with one another, right? Yep. So for me, it's having everybody grasp the scope of our program or our department in of itself, to realize how much we're managing and how much we encompass in our department.
So let's end on this, and we'll go around the room to do this. If you can change one thing about what match officials are seeing, or something that could develop from this program or from their general program in the next 5 years, what would it be? And why don't we start with Luis?
Oh, put on the spot. Something I would like to be seen is kind of, and this is all around every sport, because I used to work for boxing and badminton, and officials would get bashed a bit there too, but more understanding from the parents, and that's education going on. And maybe they should take some officiating courses too, because we urged in my other previous positions, if you're going to have a complaint about that, maybe you should take the officials course and learn the rules. Instead of just blindly speaking out without knowing the rules. So I think more education to the parents within the next couple of years would be really great. And if they took an officiating course, that'd be great, so they can understand what's going on. Yeah.
Kyla?
I think one thing that I'd like to see more development on is, and I think we're going to cover it with and through the LTOD program, is establishing that foundation, that that layer of education from the the grassroots up. A lot of our membership is rooted or based in that, grade 1 to grade 4 level of officiating, and I think that if we can tap into that and progress those match officials from that foundation upwards, I think that that'll be a giant step in the right direction for our department.
Nicky?
I'll go back to what I said earlier, is we need to educate and work with the leaders at the community level right the way up. I think if we've got, in 5 years, if we can say that we've got clubs on board and clubs are understanding the importance of LTOD and adopting LTOD and complying, and they're starting to see the retention rate rise. We've gone from 50% to 60% in the last 3 years, so I think we can go higher. And they're starting to support the programs. I think that's going to benefit the whole game, and that's what this is about. It's about the whole game. It's not just about referees and match officials.
From my angle, I've been here in 4.5 years now, and I remember coming in thinking Nicky would come to me with like, I need you to do this, and I do this, and
you always said no.
The match officials, like I got other things to deal with here. And so for me, the realization that I would like others to see is the realization that I've had for myself is that Ontario soccer isn't anything without match officials. That every game, there's a match official there. And so for us, to overlook that angle of the development is to overlook the development of the game in this province. And so for me, I would love to see a better understanding of the role that match officials play, that they're not the enemy, that they're part of the process, and they're part of everyone's team. And if we could get to that point, like, we're sailing.
Yeah, and you know what, they're not all perfect. Right. You know what, some of those calls on a Monday morning are absolutely valid. Right. So we have to understand that we're not saying that, we've got the perfect program. We've got some huge development areas, and that's why LTODs. But if you're willing to now work with me on the communication side, that's one giant step forward.
I think I've been working with you for a little while now. It was only like
You've been pretty good lately.
We've done pretty good work, I think. Yeah. So thank you guys. That's been fun. You guys are definitely playing, inspiring, and uniting in all of your communities, and you're great representatives of Ontario soccer. So thank you for taking the time to join me here today, and I hope our audience as well is sort of getting a little bit of a better understanding of what the match officials do and who you guys are in the community. And you'll see them everywhere. They're on social media. They're out in the communities. Stop in, say hello, have a chat, and that's what this is all about. So for these guys, we encourage you, as always, to play, inspire, and unite.